What's good, y'all boys? Welcome back to another video. Today's topic is, should Americans pay for reparations? So we're gonna watch this video by Jen. We reacted to one of his videos before. Cool creator, I fuck with him. We're gonna see what he has to say on this topic. But before we get into it, I'm gonna tell you what I think about the topic of reparations. We've talked about it before on this channel. And you know, I don't think my stance on it really has changed, but the reason I decided to react to this video today is because I think in California they're gonna pay reparations, like something like $1 million something to black residents in California. I need to read about it to understand the details, because I don't know how that shit's gonna work for real. And I'm pretty sure California was not a slave state, so I think that's a little bit weird. But again, probably do a separate video actually digging into it. But my stance on reparations is that I'm not against them. I'm not against reparations. The things that have been done to black Americans, black people throughout history is atrocious, and the effects of such history does have an effect on the present day. But and there's no denying that. I don't care what none of y'all motherfuckers say. There's no denying that, bruh. There's a reason why there's certain black people that are in positions they're in. Now, that'll mean there's no such thing as personal responsibility. You know, that's what the liberals take it too far. They try to make it seem like, oh, you know, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. Some shit is your fault, because you know right from wrong. You know what you're doing. But there's context to the foundation, okay? Anyways, I don't think that just giving out random indiscriminate checks to black people in America is going to solve anything aside from, you know, letting the politicians and activists feel like they did something, letting pat themselves on the back, right? Giving out a whole lot of money, a lump sum of money to everybody is not going to have a good effect on the economy. From my little understanding of the economy, I don't think that's going to be good, because where's that money going to come from, right? They're probably going to raise people's taxes. We're probably going to pay for it, regardless. It's probably going to be a bigger version of what happened with the stimulus checks, right? They gave these people all this money. They gave us all this money, all these little checks. And then, boom, taxes went up like the next year or in the next 2 years or whatever it was. So how do you handle reparations? Because you give all this money to people. The economy's probably going to get fucked up. And we're all just going to buy bullshit anyway. You know, we're all going to buy a bunch of bullshit. We're going to go straight to the Mercedes dealership. We're going to go straight to the Benz dealership. You know what I'm saying? We're going to buy a whole bunch of bullshit. And it's not going to solve nothing. So what do? Maybe you could say look into putting the money into infrastructure. You could say putting the money into, you know, different avenues that would actually help black people, right? But you know, that takes a lot of organization, a lot of planning. That's a lot of hard work that them motherfuckers not going to be interested in doing, to be honest with you. So I don't know.
Are you a victim?
America is very racist.
Black people have been consistently oppressed.
I think there's people that think they're victims and they're not.
So what groups should receive reparations then?
Start with black people.
My community deserves it because of the things that we've been through.
Let's f*** up what they did. They need to pay that shit back. So I'm out here today, and the question I'm asking is, should Americans pay for reparations?
Depends. Who are we talking about?
In San Francisco, they're looking to increase taxes to pay reparations for black people, as well as universal basic income for trans people.
Modern day.
Universal basic income for trans people? That's stupid. Nigga, go get a job, bruh. Why would other people have to pay for what you want to do to your body? That's, you know what I'm saying? You getting treated special while everybody else has to work and, you know, live their lives like a regular person. Okay. That's where, when I say liberals take shit too far, it's stuff like that is what I mean. But I'm sure not every liberal agrees with that, but the crazy ones on the internet probably do, like people like Hassan.
Society should be paying reparations to the black people that you had mentioned, just because of everything that they've faced, but I do not believe that we should be paying for trans people to not have to.
Okay,
I think it depends totally on the situation, because like in your example, all black people, that's a huge demographic. Not every black person has been quote unquote oppressed.
I mean, especially with black and
That is true. Not every black person was a descendant of slavery. It's going to be really hard to keep track of that, like to figure out who gets what money. You know what I'm saying? See, that's why America is funny, because they should have been gave reparations. But people in America were focused on holding black people back, okay? Woo, Civil War, woo, slavery's abolished. Guess what? Motherfuckers still couldn't vote. Couldn't own guns. Could barely live life how they wanted to live. Because slavery is gone, okay. We still need people to work these fields. What'd they do? Sharecropping. What'd they do? Lock up black people for whatever reason they felt like oh, you're a prisoner? Guess what the 13th Amendment says? Slavery is prohibited except as punishment for a crime. Oh, lock these niggas up, put them back in the field. You know what I'm saying? Black codes, Jim Crow, segregation. When black people were putting their shit together and making their own communities that were thriving, successful, what did a lot of these motherfuckers do? They came and burned that shit down. White people used to go in black people's cribs, walk up in their cribs, go in their fridge, eat their food, and walk out. You know what I'm saying? All that shit kept going, even after slavery ended. It gets harder because now, how do you say who gets reparations and who doesn't? Because everything is so, mumbled. Everything is just so fucked up. Like, everything is connected. Everything is so muddled. How do you know who gets what? You dig what I'm saying? If they did it right after, which they should have, right? Okay, then it would have been straight. But there was not an interest in black people being treated just like everybody else in America. Or at least just like white people in America. Because even other ethnicities, other minorities weren't getting treated the same. So yeah, it was fucked up from jump. Because other people got reparations, right? When a lot of slave owners lost their slaves, they got reparations. They said black people were going to get 40 acres and a mule. Guess what? They didn't get that shit. But slave owners were compensated because of their lost labor. After World War II and America were putting Japanese American citizens in internment camps, afterwards they got an apology and they got reparations. So it's not like reparations is a foreign idea or concept. The thing is, look at how quickly other groups got reparations after what was done to them. Black people has been pushed off so much. Now it's like, how do you even do that? Let's keep going though.
People, I think that they're given a lot of opportunities. Like I'm doing investment banking recruiting right now. I know for people for diversity, equity, and inclusion, they can access the interviewing process a lot sooner and a lot earlier than I can. For example, I think Black Americans have an equal opportunity to achieve anything that any other race can in the U.S.
How do you?
That's true. With hiring practices, diversity hiring practices, they do try to, and quotas, they try to meet quotas. They want everybody to be, they want it to seem, what's the word? They want it to seem, I can't think of the word right now, but let's say congruent, right? They want it to see equal representation of black people in different fields, even though you can't force that, right? Because when you try to force that, then you get people who aren't capable of doing a job in a certain job. You know what I mean? I get what he's trying to say though, because they're trying to do all these things to affirmative action and all this type of shit to try to help black people. But I think that those are just band-aids to the problem, because the foundation is still messed up. So you're giving out helping hands to the people who are able to catch them, but not everybody's going to be able to utilize those because the foundation is still fucked up. So yeah, they're pretty much just band-aids, because I don't know, how do you solve that, bro? How do you solve a generation of broken foundation?
How do you determine if a certain group is oppressed to be able to get those reparations?
Obviously, if they're black.
There's a lot of f***ed up history in this country, and I think that to take the step to do right, just to go forward and say that we made this happen and we're sorry, and here's a way to, bring you guys to a level of equality.
For the black community specifically, reparations will go a long way, just because I think a lot of people don't really understand that our community is set up for failure sometimes. A lot of people come from homes that are not only just broken, but are financially illiterate, so they don't know how to use money. Giving them reparations would hopefully set them off with a bigger platform than what they generally would have.
That's a really important point that you brought up though, because yeah, you can give people money, but if they don't have the necessary skills to invest it or keep it or save it, then that will be gone in seconds, right?
It could definitely do more harm than good if it's put into the wrong hands.
Because today, cities in California are proposing reparations as high as $5 million.
Who the hell is that over there in the top hat? What in the world?
Because today, cities in California are proposing reparations.
Yo, who is that nigga? Reparations now.
As high as $5 million per eligible black person, as well as universal basic income for trans people.
The city of San Francisco is
considering... You see, every time black people try to do something, there's always LGBTQ activists trying to jump on along with it. Every time they try to co-opt that shit. Why the fuck are you? We're talking reparations. Why are you trying to throw in universal basic income for trans people? What?
An idea to pay
reparations for the black community.
Liberation starts with money.
For transgender and non-binary residents.
But with a looming
200,000? Oh, what the fuck? 200,000 guaranteed income? Let's keep going.
America's continued divide, we must question if reparations would fix past wrongs or create unintended consequences. Because what exactly is a victim if we're all victims to some degree? And is money truly the solution, or is it more money, more problems? Guess we gonna see. So what groups should receive reparations then?
Start with black people.
So would this be like any black person? Like, let's say if they have like descendants from slaves, or is this just a black person? Let's say if they just came from Jamaica or Africa, would they be entitled to reparations?
The difference between like black American, me, myself, right, and someone from Jamaica or Africa is they have a place to call home. For a lot of black Americans, their whole ethnic identity was erased by slavery.
So you said that you should start with like black people. Then who should be like the next group next?
Probably the gays. I don't know how much they need it though, because like, you know, they're doing pretty well, but like,
yeah, I've never met a poor gay person.
Yeah, they're doing great for themselves.
I think it should be
why would gay people get reparations? That's the thing, like, no group can compare what has happened to them to what has happened to black people, black Americans, and black Caribbeans too, because it's just, that has never happened to the scale on slavery, transatlantic slave trade, and what was being done to black people is not comparable to any other group, as far as I know. Of course, there's been other slaves in history, duh. Of course, there's been slaves treated brutally, duh. But black people, black slaves, black enslaved people, what did they tell them? You're not human, you're less than, you're a slave because that's all you're meant to be, and that's all you will ever be, and they're beaten and killed and had the whole identity erased, okay? Generation upon generation. You know, come on. Not the same.
For everybody. My community deserves it because of the things that we've been through. I would be remiss to say another community doesn't deserve something because they're a little bit more set up than my community.
So, but would it be like equal amounts across the board, or would there be like, I hate to say this, like a stack ranking of who was more oppressed?
That I don't know.
I think that we should look at who...
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, the details and really the finer workings of it is really complicated, so it's hard to just figure out. It's hard.
Who we oppress the most for the longest amount of time and didn't do right by them.
Everyone has their own rights to identify as a victim, but at the end of the day, like, it's not going to get you where you want to be. I think that you can cash checks and spend the money, but if you're not putting in the work, you're never going to learn, and none of the generations after you are going to learn either.
And when there's a race for who's the biggest victim, there will be consequences for paying some groups and others not. So I was curious to hear the other side. Would you say, though, that certain groups in America are more likely to face, let's say, systemic oppression?
You know, especially like now we have like affirmative action. If anything, that levels the playing field or puts them at an advantage for a lot of certain opportunities. But I think there are definitely certain instances of racism, and you know, you can't root out all racism. I think that there are generally equal opportunities.
Besides all the controversies surrounding affirmative action, is this even a valid form of repayment? Do you think affirmative action is a form of reparations?
It would depend on who you're talking to, honestly. To a kid in Compton who has no means of getting out of that little area, it might not be the same. Sometimes your surroundings, especially in an environment where you don't feel like you can make it out, can seem very overwhelming. So it's hard to think outside of that.
So when affirmative action has been deemed legal by law, does that signal a government's obligation to solve inequality? And if so, through financial or other means, to what extent?
The forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations.
I don't think there's no solving inequality. You know what I mean? Because life... Wait. You heard that voice crack? Because life is not fair. There's always going to be things that are unequal, right? If let's say I'm a dog, right? Let's say I'm a dog in the wild. And I was born a pretty big dog. My teeth are sharp and my muscles are strong. And then there's another dog, born frail, small, weak. That's not fair. That's not equal. But that's just how we was born. That's just what it was. You dig what I'm saying? There's no solving certain inequalities because there's always going to be people that are able to excel, and there's going to be people that are not able to excel, right? And then there's all in between. Yeah. So even though the foundation is different for Black Americans, Black people, it's still, you know what I mean? There's no solving inequality. No. That's what a lot of these, like, you know, that's what a lot of certain people believe, that you can solve it, that if everyone's just the same, then it's gonna work, but there's no way to even do that shit.
Bundesregierung wird in Zukunft in ihren Bemühungen die Verteidigung der Freiheit nicht nachlassen.
After World War II in 1952, Germany signed the first set of reparations agreements to compensate Holocaust survivors, which is to this day has paid out a total of 80 billion euros.
We owe that to those who survived and bravely carried the burden of their painful memories.
And despite obvious frustrations over payments, there has been decent support from Germans over the years, and at least no instances of anti-Semitic backlash. And since then, reparations have been ongoing, where even this past year, Germany announced the largest ever package of 1.2 billion for remaining survivors. And with
I like Jen because he's, even though you could tell, you know, No, I like Jen because, yeah, I could tell what he really thinks on certain stuff or where he's leaning, but I like that in the videos, he makes sure to put arguments for both sides. Whether he agrees or doesn't agree, he puts argument for both sides. Because this could have easily been a video saying, look, reparations are stupid. Why would they do reparations? Look at these stupid people. But he's showing, right here, he's showing an example of successful reparations in another country for another tragedy that happened. You know? Could have easily been some type of propaganda piece, but he tries to show both sides. I like that. I respect that. It's respectable.
80% of survivors in Eastern Europe below the poverty line, financial reparations have definitely made a benefit. And together with symbolic reparations such as Holocaust museums and memorials, Germany has made efforts to ensure atrocities are not forgotten or repeated. But it raises the question, were the intentions behind the reparations out of genuine guilt or to buy cooperation? Because for initial recipients, not all were in favor. Some Jews opposed the idea of reparations as blood money in an insult and commodification to their suffering. And especially when we look at Germany's history with reparations, it may reveal answers.
Whoa.
The Treaty of Versailles imposed heavy reparations on Germany after World War I, which led to economic instability and political unrest that contributed to the rise of Nazi Germany and ultimately to World War II. And so whether it's fair to view it this way or not, are reparations a mere transactions that creates more problems than it solves? And so I wanted to ask a Jewish person whose family has experienced the Holocaust. Do you think like governments have a more obligation to pay for certain injustices?
When the government's paying for it, it's coming out of taxpayer money. I'm a Jewish person, right? A lot of my relatives have been killed off in the Holocaust. You know, there's even a lot of anti-Semitism towards Jews. Jews weren't allowed in specific areas and jobs. Like today, I think my family's like overcome that. So like, especially me, someone that wasn't around in the 1800s when slavery was going on in the U.S., I don't think that I'm responsible as a taxpayer to pay for that.
Which brings up a point, because where would the money come from? How would we pay for reparations or universal basic income?
Well, taxes, right? I mean, that's the obvious answer.
It'll probably be incentivized as like some tax or something, probably gonna come out of our money.
So in that sense then, what would be the point of the reparations then in terms of financial incentive?
Think of it like you pay taxes for police.
Okay, the camera died, we're back.
Officers, firefighters, stuff like that. It might not seem the same, but you don't even think twice about it, right?
So you're saying like raising taxes, but then changing the reallocation of the funds. Okay.
Money's all made up, so we're not really paying for anything because we're always in debt. So
money's fake.
Yeah, absolutely. Just make up something and give it to black people so they're happy, bro. Like,
I mean, you could take the taxes we're already paying that are going out of the country to pay for those instead of sending billions of dollars to Ukraine.
Because when we compare this,
see, that is true. They already sent a hell of money to Ukraine and other shit. That's true. That's true.
Seemingly relative lack of investment in domestic services, from infrastructure, public education to the homelessness crisis, in contrast to the billions of investment in foreign aid, it does make you question, is it about the lack of funds or is it about the priorities? Since the invasion of Ukraine by Russia on February 24th, 2022, America has directed more than $75 billion in aid, far more than any other country.
The United States will support the Ukrainian people as they defend their country.
On one side, one can make the argument that foreign aid takes precedence as it's in the name of national security, and that despite perception, it's actually a small part of the overall budget. But on the other side, with a looming recession and rising inflation, are Americans starting to feel as if priorities need to shift to domestic initiatives like reparations? But at the same time, is giving money always the viable solution? A study on stimulus checks to poor Americans from amounts ranging from half a month's worth of income to even 2 months' income showed that it didn't have any positive impacts on financial, physical, or psychological well-being. And not only did it not increase incentive to save more money, it caused distress in the subjects as they were made more aware of the gap between what they had and what they wanted but didn't have. And so I wanted to apply these findings in the context of reparations.
Do you think reparations or universal basic income will de-incentivize hard work and personal responsibility?
I think that it will. Because if I get a check to my account right now for $5 million, you think I'm gonna go to work tomorrow? You think I'm gonna go to work? No! So imagine thousands, millions of people who get millions of dollars in their account tomorrow. Oh boy, all them jobs are going to suffer because we're not going to work. We're not going to work. We're not going to go. I mean, be honest with yourself. We're not going. You're not going. If you got $1 million in your account right now, are you going to work tomorrow? No, you're not.
In general, it definitely can have that effect on people if they just know they're going to be getting, a $2,000 settlement check a month, then they can sit on their ass and do nothing.
I do think our image necessarily isn't always the best. I think that sometimes the media takes the worst of us and they use that as examples. I know a lot of hardworking black men and women who are financially literate, who know what to do with money. If those people were highlighted in our community more, then we'd be looked at in a different light.
We're going to eventually get to a point where we can't.
Yeah, media controls reality. Media controls perception. If they're only seeing negative shit, then that's all they gonna think shit is. Negative.
Sustainably house and pay everybody. If they don't have a job, we should be figuring out how we can get this person to be a contributor to our society.
Do you trust the government?
I don't trust anybody, bro.
So in that sense, would you want the government to be controlling a system like that?
Absolutely not.
So then who would control it?
That's a big question.
Nobody. So there's no answer, bro. There's no answer, okay? There's no answer. We can't trust the government to control something like that because that motherfuckers is evil and greedy. So what can we do? And this is where like a lot of socialists come in, where they want to overturn the entire system. Motherfucker, how you gonna do that? How you gonna do that? Because listen, human nature is human nature. I think when humans get in position of power, power corrupts, right? So even if not the whole, let's say, let's humor me this situation. Let's say a bunch of socialist activists rise up and we're able to overcome the government. Now we're in power, we're in charge, we make the decisions. Don't you think that even if most of the group has good intentions, there's going to be at least one or more people who are going to want to capitalize, right? Who are going to want to have the control, have the power, right? You can't really blame capitalism for that. That's just humans being greedy. It's in human nature. I feel like it's in human. I think that it's in human nature to want more and more and more and more and more when they get a sense of that power, especially based on how they grow up or their, the morals that's instilled in them. Does that mean it's hopeless? I mean, I don't want to say that, but realistically, there's gonna be people that's gonna fuck up whatever system they're gonna make. There's plenty of times where hurt people. The abused become the abusers. The oppressed become the oppressors. You know what I mean? A lot of people have this feeling of like revenge, and when they get in a position where they can enact their revenge, they're gonna do it. That's why you see the attitudes we see today, where people be getting on random white people that did nothing to them, and call them oppressors or call them colonizers. Them niggas ain't do shit. The real colonizers are the ones that's in power that did the shit to us. You know what I'm saying? So let's keep going.
So the question is there a precedence of reparations in America?
Our West Coast became a potential combat zone.
During the same time as the Holocaust in 1942, the U.S. government forced around 120,000 Japanese Americans in internment camps for national security reasons.
All of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move.
In the camps, Japanese Americans faced poor conditions and racial discrimination and were forced to leave their homes, businesses, and belongings behind. And although they were released after the war, many had lost their previous pre-war belongings and property to vandalism and theft. But in 1988, a significant step was taken in US history to acknowledge the wrongs. Through sustained efforts by political groups and campaigns, Japanese Americans achieved reparations from the US government of $20,000 each.
For here we admit a wrong. Here we reaffirm our commitment as a nation to equal justice under the law.
And so then, why haven't reparations been achieved after centuries of slavery in America? And there seems to be several factors behind this uncomfortable truth. The number of Japanese American victims were relatively small, and more importantly, easily identifiable, as many were still alive when reparations were approved. And along with it came strong unity rallying around symbolic victims. Both Daniel Inouye and Spark Matsunaga eventually became US senators and served as strong advocates for demands, whereas for slavery, it's difficult to identify the perpetrators and which people of African descent today are descendants of those enslaved. And since no direct victims are alive today, there are also no symbolic victims that can rally efforts. Stuart E. Eisenstadt, who was an American diplomat that helped negotiate Holocaust reparations with Germany, argued that reparations are complicated, contentious, and messy, and work best when the crime was recent and the direct victims are still alive. But as echoed by Thomas Kramer, a professor of public policy, using distance and time as an argument against reparations is also damaging. And that it signals that just because you commit a historical injustice and that you waited long enough, it doesn't count anymore. And so it's obvious that reparations involve multiple factors, which tracks both supporters and opponents. And so it makes you wonder, if reparations are approved, how will people react? What impact would reparations have on racial...
I already know motherfuckers gonna be mad. A lot of conservatives will be mad. A lot of Republicans will be mad. I mean, we watched the video when Matt Walsh was talking about that shit, comparing it to like what did he compare it to? If y'all seen it in the video, I think compared to like a relationship, was like, oh, if one party keeps bringing up the mistakes of the other partner from the past, it's like, man, shut up, man, shut up.
Relations in America.
Everyone's going to start becoming more resentful towards everyone instead of creating this equal playing field. If everyone's always thinking like, you owe me, there's never going to be that sense of we're equal.
I don't think it's necessarily just going to offset everything we've done.
Would it do anything?
I mean, it might create short monetary gain for a select amount of people, but there's so many different people that have been oppressed in the U.S.
Is the $2 million or the $10 million or whatever blanket amount of money even going to fix the level of injustice? I don't really have a great perspective because I am not a victim, but if you just gave me a set amount of money to fix oppression or injustice I've been through, to me, I don't really think it would be enough.
What would be the success measures for reparations?
For black people, the most important thing is like finding a place in this country to say like, hey, this is home. So I'm not saying like give people money as reparations. I'm saying giving them property as reparations.
I wouldn't necessarily tie it to like you get a check.
Even property, you still got to pay for it, you know. And if they don't have the means to pay for it, what do you know, they don't work.
If you were to say like, hey, we'll give you reparations in the form of giving you your first property, then that's real reparations because you're setting yourself up for at least generations.
If reparations go through, do you think it creates a more equal society, or do you think it'll create more division and resentment?
And where would that property even be at? You know what I mean? Because look, if the mindsets aren't changed, if the culture isn't changed, you give all these people houses, it's going to be the same shit as it is now. Some black people will be very successful. They'll know exactly what to do. They're going to work together. They're going to make nice communities. There's going to be some black people that's going to fuck that shit up just like the hoods that we already have. Okay? They're going to be throwing their trash on the ground. They're going to be fucking that shit up. They still going to be robbing other niggas. They don't give a fuck at all. So it's like... And not to bring up the fringe element, right? Because there's going to be a lot of contentious people if black people were to get something like property or free handouts, right? There's going to be definitely extremist white people or whatever, supremacists that is not going to like that shit, and they might take actions into their own hands and do the same shit that we've seen in the history books. Well, no, these aren't in the history books, but in history, like Black Wall Street, like Ocoee, like countless other places I don't have on top of my head. Because we already see how divisive shit is now, right? Where people don't know how to talk about these topics and atrocities in history without getting mad and all types of shit. We see it on YouTube, we see it in politics, we see it on the street, we see it all the time. Ooh, it's gonna be crazy.
is all about mentality. If you're worried about the next person, then of course you would resent them.
And so if the focus as a society is always on past injustices, is it making it easier to have a negative mentality towards one another? From 1948 to 1994, the apartheid in South Africa was a system designed to establish and maintain white minority rule over the black majority population.
Apartheid, the policy of good neighborliness. What sense of justice will they ever have if they're treated this way?
And once the apartheid was abolished, the Truth and Reconciliation Committee was established as a forum for victims to share their stories and for perpetrators to confess to their crimes.
I assaulted you. What kind of men are you?
And with over 22,000 statements broadcasted on national TV, the aim was to expose the atrocities, provide reparations, and most importantly, to promote national unity. And so, was it successful in doing so? On the one hand, establishing a hearing to encourage honest and open dialogue helped establish reparation payments along with a framework for accountability. But at the same time, the same dialogue that involves opening up wounds of the past didn't come without a cost. South Africa is still seeking cohesion as the most unequal country in the world, where the divide between rich white minority and poor black majority is still greater than ever.
Poverty in South Africa is still largely defined by the skin color.
And when it's revealed that the government did not fulfill the reparations program fully, such as land reparations, it becomes clear why a majority of the land is still owned by whites.
The narrative that the land was stolen must...
Oh, hold on. Was you gonna say must be stopped?
Stop.
Of course, yeah. See, this is what they do. When people do try to help those that have been wrong, there's gonna be greedy people, greedy white people in this case, that are not going to want to give up what they have gotten illegitimately, because then that's what they're gonna do, right? There's a lot of people in this country and in this world who have made their profits, who have made their success off of the backs of someone else, right? I remember there's a story here, I think in California. There was a very, very valuable beachside property that was owned by this white family. Turns out I think their grandparents stole it from black people. They stole that shit. They stole that shit, which happened plenty of times back in the day. They stole that shit. And what the black people can't do shit? They can't do nothing. Because the police is not on their side. The government was not on their side. The city was not on their side. What are you going to do, nigger? That's what they were saying in their head to the black people. Now, fast forward to present day, they was like, nah, y'all motherfuckers got to get up out of there and give it back to the rightful owners. It's not no game of finders, keepers, losers, weepers, okay? That's what a lot of these people do. A lot of the imperialists, colonials, colonizers, that's how they think. Well, it's mine now because my people stole it and we got it fair and square. No. Nah, they gotta make shit right. It is what it is. So of course there's gonna be people like this motherfucker who's not gonna want to give up what his people probably stole. Okay? It is what it is. That's not saying every person stole their wealth, right? But there are definitely plenty of examples of people who did steal their wealth. Duh. And if you deny that, you're stupid.
Because it's false.
And like a wound left untreated that worsens over time, empty promises lead to further distrust and inequality. And if paying reparations can lead to further division, is reparations a viable solution, or will it create more problems for the future? And are we too attached to our own stories that we're unable to seek a solution? Let me ask you this. Would you say you're a victim?
You know, I've definitely experienced anti-Semitism, but I don't carry that with me every day.
I don't blame anyone personally. I blame the systems that were put in place before all of us were here.
I don't think about like how hard I had it. I think about moving forward. If I just take it for what it is and realize that I'm in control of my life and I can push it forward, I'll be okay.
I mean, anyone can be a victim. It's really what's on the other side, what happens then.
Do you think victimhood is a mentality?
It can be an influence, for sure.
I think there's people that think they're victims and they're not. There are true victims out there. I'm not a victim of anything. I've been very blessed and grateful. I don't take that for granted.
Being a victim,
while a lot of people are victims of themselves,
can sometimes be a choice. It's also something that happens to you.
And if anyone can claim victimhood, it's Viktor Frankl.
Who?
In his book Man's Search for Meaning, Frankl describes his first-hand experience of the suffering in the concentration camp. And even though he was a victim in every sense of the word, Frankl realized that victimhood was
Hold on, what the hell was they doing?
Victim in every sense of the word.
They bent that nigga over, pulled his pants down, was whooping his ass, literally, Oh yeah, I know the people back there was freaks, bro. Hold on. They made the other people hold him down. They made his fellow captives hold him down. Crazy.
Frankel realized that victimhood was a choice. Frankel argues that those who started seeing themselves as victims became passive and helpless, while those who chose to take ownership had the power and agency to survive. And so Frankel, suffering in the most hopeless of situations, what he realized was that the last thing they can take from you is your ability to choose your response.
If we cannot change the situation, we have always the last freedom to change our attitude to that situation.
Because just like many of you that luckily have never been in concentration camps, you and I can both relate to times that we felt like victims. Whether it be being bullied, feeling inferior and out of place at the new school, or thinking that girls will never like me because of my race. Because no matter how valid your claim to victimhood, it's the classic case of play stupid games and win stupid prizes, and the prize usually being more division. Because true empowerment is the realization that no one's here to save you and that you're completely okay with it. And that's exactly the mission of exploring the unfamiliar. And with that said, thanks for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more content where I turn street interviews into investigative journalism. And if YouTube gets it right, like this video too.
Gen Kimura. Start with black people. Completely ignores Native Americans who were actively genocided. Didn't Native Americans get stuff though? I don't know too much, so I'm not going. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they had got stuff. This consequence for reparations don't actually fix anything. The U.S. has already done multiple reparations programs for indigenous Americans. In the 40s, they paid out over $1 billion, if I remember correctly. But after a few generations, that money is spent. Everyone forgets it ever happened, and we right back to square one. I'm mixed race. My mother's black. Grandparents lived through Jim Crow. Great-grandfather played in the baseball Negro leagues, and I've been able to trace my ancestry back to slaves who were bought from over Central Africa. That being said, I don't believe black people should be reparations. The time for that is long over and should have been given to those directly affected by it. Even my grandmother and grandfather, who face prejudice, think that the modern-day black community has a state of perpetual victimhood. Okay, let me get this straight. People that never practiced slavery or even agree with it need to pay reparations to people that never suffered it. What? In my opinion, as someone living outside the U.S., if they pass these reparations, I think it is only going to lead more division. I'm not speaking for all black people. As a black person myself, unless someone is or was a slave themselves or directly affected by it, no one deserves money for something they didn't go through. And I understand that. I understand that all the way. If your ancestors did something bad, you have to pay for it. It's like your dad committed a crime and you take the jail time. See, I understand that all the way. But if some of these people took a trip through some of these communities, right, I feel like you would see how the way a lot of people are living is directly connected to the past, you know? Now, I'm not saying that people who had nothing to do with it need to pay for it. It really should have been done right away, but certain people in power, powers that be, did not want it to be paid. So the foundation is already fucked up. Black people in America started way behind everybody else. That's not to say other people didn't have prejudice when they came. Asian people definitely did. There was even laws that was made against Asian people. Italians had a lot of issues when they came here because Italians were seen as not white, but then eventually they were accepted as white, you know. So you can't deny a lot of this shit. I think a lot of people just don't really know enough off the top of their head. I wish more people would talk about these type of shit. That's why I like Jen. That's why I like Jen's channel, because he talks about this stuff. But you know, it's very complicated. It's very complicated. But hey, that's the video. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you agree with anything I said, or if you disagree, let me know. You know, I'll probably reply to the comment. I don't care. We're here to learn. We're all here to learn. We're on the same earth, okay? But hey, I appreciate y'all. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, hit notification bell down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Oh, and join the Discord. Links in below. And download too, buddy. Link in below.